I'm good. Good. Yay, we're
Good to hear.
working. Woo!
Finally. About time, huh?
Yes, no kidding. About time.
With all the problems that we have had, as much time as we have wasted and got absolutely nothing accomplished, I'm beginning to think that we should rename our podcast to Congress. Who else
I,
wastes this much time and does absolutely nothing?
hey, I thought all the way up until they named the Washington Commanders the Commanders, I thought that they should make those guys name the Congress. You know what a
Yeah.
Congress is, right?
I've heard, but I don't recall the definition. What is it?
It is a group of baboons, is a Congress.
There you go.
So I thought that would have been very, very good
Apt.
to do.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Anywho, all right, man, this is exciting. I'm
That
really,
it
really happy that
is.
we're able to finally do this.
Yeah, a little bit of introduction as to the name, newsworthy. Um, we talked about in the past. You and I have had many conversations on how do they determine what gets airtime, and why aren't some things given more airtime, and why are some things given way too much. And that's what we're trying to dig into a little bit with this is in to narrow it down a little bit to look at some specific topics and to determine exactly that. Is it newsworthy? And if so, should it get more or less airtime? Uh, what would you add to that about what we're
No, I
trying
think
to
that's
accomplish?
perfect. I think that's absolutely perfect. I don't know, but I feel like there's a mass of people out there who are sick of hearing about the Kardashians and not hearing enough about what's really happening in our world that affects us on a daily basis. Some of us affects us definitely as a nation, um, and just affects us at some point in some form of humanity that we're just not hearing about. There's so
I
many
agree.
amazing things and worrisome things and good things and bad things that are happening every day in our world that we simply don't have time to hear because we're hearing so much about things uh,
Like
that
the Kardashians.
really, yeah, doesn't really matter to a hill of beans. And the good example today is the Amber Heard and our
Johnny
local
Depp.
Kentucky guy, their trial going on for anti defamation, and it's just so much. It's everywhere.
I
And
remember, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, you're good.
I remember a month or so ago, you and I were having a conversation, not about the podcast, but along the same lines. We were just talking about news topics of the day, and I remember saying to you specifically that the Britney Spears topic come up, and this was around the time I think that her attempting to get her dad's conservatorship overturned was really getting huge. I don't think it had actually happened yet, but it was getting there. And one of us mentioned that, and I remember my comment to you was, I don't care. I really don't care. I do think that this girl was probably treated unfairly. I think this probably should have ended years ago, but I've heard about it so much. It's been in the news so much. I'm so tired of hearing about it. I'm so tired of reading about, you know, who's trying to steal some of her millions. Uh, yes, the Kardashians, the Britney Spears of the world, the Johnny Depp slash Amber Heard cases of the world. Although those gossip type, celebrity gossip things are certainly interesting. There's tabloids and magazines that cater to nothing but that just seems to take over so much of the news that you're right that the important topics of the day oftentimes aren't covered at all, or if so, not nearly in the to the depth that they should be.
Yeah, and it goes without saying that bad news sells. That's why they always focus on bad news. We never hear good, you know. sometimes your local news station at the very end, the very last minute of the program will give you a feel good story about something, some kid who did something great, whatever. Uh, but the rest of it is all the negative. It's all, oh, what was us? What was us? What was us? Or bad people did this, and that's there's a place for that. But what you're getting lost in the shuffle is that we are also a nation and a people and a world that's full of compassion. And I think that too many times the almighty dollar outweighs the weight of seeing somebody do something good in the world. And to me personally, I feel like that's a very negative thing that's developed over, I guess, since we've had media at this point. But
Yeah. There's also one other thing that comes into play with that, to play devil's advocate with you for a second. And that's the old saying that as long as bad news is news, we're still doing okay. When
yeah,
the day
okay,
comes that th- a little boy helped an elderly lady cross the street, a little Boy Scout boy helped an elderly lady cross the street. If that's news, we're in trouble. Hopefully hopefully not only that, but hopefully the good stuff is happening so much that it's really not news. So that is usually what you hear from media is their defense whenever these things are mentioned, and there is some degree of truth to it. Yes, as long as the bad things are still making the news, that's a far better world than when the rare good person does a nice thing and that becomes news. So,
sure,
yeah.
sure thing, sure thing. So that's kind of what we want to run through in this podcast. We want to bring to light things that we feel deserve more news. We want to talk about things that are getting way too much coverage, and why we believe that they're not, or why they are, and why they shouldn't. And I feel that there's a market for this. I feel like two guys from Central Kentucky can put a little spot on the world there, and hopefully we can help make some sense of it.
Well, at least we can share our side of it. It remains to be seen if anyone finds it interesting, but yeah, we can certainly share our slant, our view to it. Hello, Double Infinity, and welcome. Glad you joined us today.
Yeah, whoever joins us, like for like our first 100 followers, from now till whenever we have more than that, you guys are getting Wednesday for free. Wednesdays we're going to be live.
Absolutely.
We're going to do this, and we're going to edit it on Thursdays and actually publish it on Fridays as an edited, wonderful, mistake free uh, uh, podcast. On Wednesdays, you just kind of get us pretty raw, and that's that's going to be kind of funny, I think.
That's the plan anyway, as far as the schedule that you gave. And
Yeah, I think so.
hopefully we'll be able to quickly get to and adhere to that. Certainly not going to guarantee the first week or two we're able to edit it in a timely manner, but we'll certainly try.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the podcast. So Jerry, what makes you when I brought this idea up to you,
Okay.
and I said, "Hey Jerry, let's do a podcast," and then you were like, "Well, what about?" And then we just kind of hashed it out. In your mind, were you just thinking I was a crazy person, or did you have a desire to actually like try something new?
No, I would go with the former. I pretty much thought you were crazy that we would that someone or ones would be interested in listening, and I would clarify that a little bit. Um, it's not that I did think that; I pretty much still do think that. I find it hard to believe that people are going to care about what you and I have to say. So, hey, we'll find out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so um, we kind of know what we're doing, and that can evolve or devolve, really depending on feedback from the people who listen to the show. Um, everything changes. Sometimes it changes for the better. Sometimes it changes for the bad. But we're always open to change, new ideas. If you have something that you would rather hear or hear our opinions on, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let us know. But so we're a bunch of crazy people, as Jerry has decided. um,
By
but
the way, if I could interject one thing going along with what you just said, can you see notes that are entered, by the way, Steve? Because Double Infinity just actually told us what he would like to see us address somewhere down the road.
what's
His
that?
question, he said, domestic violence pertaining to men, the silence or break your silence. What's your opinion? Uh, Double Infinity, I promise that we will get that added to one of the next, at least one of the next couple of podcasts coming up.
Absolutely. That's a good topic. Speaking of, since that was asked specifically, um, I, tell me a little bit about yourself, and I'll get back to that. Why it's kind of an interesting topic for me personally. But tell us, Jerry, a little bit about your background, where you're from, what you're doing, how you're doing it, just so people kind of know, why you're going to be wrong on most of your topics, and I'm going to be right.
Yeah,
In
okay.
fact, we were we were, a couple of names we thought about for the podcast was how many ways can Jerry be proven wrong today? One of the other names was yes, my name's Jerry and I'm always wrong. And the third one
But we
was yes, I'm Jerry. I'm a tree hugging liberal, but that's okay. So
No, 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 no. You're forgetting what we finally decided to go with. The little plaque that my ex-wife bought me that said there are two ways to do things. There's the wrong way and there's Jerry's way. So that's what we decided to go with.
oh
But
no,
anyway, I'm a mid 50s uh, guy. I was born and raised in South Central Kentucky on Lake Cumberland, and when I was 18 years old, I moved to the University of Kentucky at Lexington and spent the next 10, 12 years living in central Kentucky and then moved to central Virginia, worked in retail most of my life, and I've since moved back and retired, semi retired, and living the easy life. And it would be really easy if I didn't have to constantly correct Steve because he just, poor guy's so misguided in so many subjects that, yeah, that's going to have to come out of retirement and just consider myself full time employed doing that. Your turn. I'm glad to see
no.
you agree.
I do everything but agree. Okay. Mid 40s, varied background, not retired. I still work. Uh, Retail was in our background. I used to do home health. I've driven a truck. Um, I have currently, I'm a full time realtor, also here right in Bourbon Country, Central Kentucky. Um, and politically speaking, I'm a registered Republican. I don't care putting that out. But the only reason I'm still a registered Republican is that because in Kentucky, we do not have access to primaries if you're not a Republican or Democrat. Otherwise, I would 100% be a libertarian. Um, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm one of those people, and the reason I've dragged Jerry kicking and screaming into the podcast world is because um, I don't want to be being from home health and end of life care with a lot of folks. I saw a lot of folks with a lot of regrets, and honestly, I don't want to be that person. I want to be somebody who, at my deathbed, said, I saw something. I wasn't that good at it, but I did it. So, I was a professional wrestler for a while for that very reason. So, as funny as that career was, that's a different story for a different day. But I am very happy to be here today and excited about this podcast. And maybe that's unfounded. Maybe in 6 months we'll have two listeners still, and that'll be that. And we'll wrap it up, or we won't. We'll see. So really excited about all that.
A couple of things I'd like to add to that, if it's okay. One is where we met. We both mentioned that we'd worked in retail. I actually hired Steve when he was 16 years old. Uh, and I would like to state that for the record, uh, obviously to show how that I've been correcting his misguided aspirations all along. He was a full-blooded liberal at the time, which he will tell you. Uh, but yes, anyway, I did. That's how we met. I hired Steve when he was 16 years old. Steve mentioned that he's a registered Republican. I was a registered Republican for most of my life. Um, During the Donald Trump presidency, I decided that I could no longer go along with that, and I am now an independent, and which is probably what I should have been for several years. Steve and I both agreed for several years that both parties are pretty much worthless. That they seem far more interested in trying to maintain the power that they have than they do in fixing about any problem. So he and I've felt pretty much the same way for a long time on that. Anyway, uh, we're going to get into the two topics briefly that we wanted to cover this week.
Yeah, let me touch on the domestic violence thing.
Sure.
Uh, I just feel that um, the um, I feel like that is a topic that needs to be broached because domestic violence from men onto women um, is abhorrent, and I feel like domestic violence to men from women is equally as abhorrent. Um, I don't like either one, and it is one of those things that uh, I just can't put it into words enough. Having been a victim in some respects to that in the past of what that's like. And I have very close friends that have been on the other side of that, and I can't wrap my head around what that's like to have somebody that you love and that you have chosen to be with to intentionally hurt you. There's a whole gambit of emotions that just fill you from that. And I'm excited that that topic was brought up, and I'll be real happy when we can actually make that podcast. So I just wanted to put that out there that yeah, that's a real thing. Um, oh yeah, and I 100 double infinity. I 100% believe that from two men from women that is definitely something that happens, and it happens in a variety of ways that a lot of people don't even realize, and that's. Um, we'll get into that in the podcast. Just from my own personal experience, I can speak on that and how that happens from name calling on the small end to withholding, intimacy to physical abuse. There is a whole gambit of things that women can do to men and do. It happens. It's real. And for
Yes.
men to be like, "Oh, that never happens to me because I'm a man." Man, get over yourself. It happens every day to people on both, like I said, on both sides, and I can't wait to do that topic. Might step on some toes, and if I do, that's okay.
Yeah, we won't call names, but yeah, you absolutely have been through a lot, and I've certainly witnessed one of the worst episodes I think with you when one of your exes. We're not going to call names, but yeah,
Oh yeah,
I was there when Nicholasville. I was there when that happened. So
yeah.
yeah, will be
So
an interesting topic.
it will. And one of the other topics, just along those same lines, that we're going to have to delve into, and maybe I'm. First of all, when we set our topics to do for the podcast, our normal topics, all we give each other is a headline, just so we're not doing the same topic. And we don't really try to. We try really hard not to talk about it to each other prior to the podcast. So um, we do that so that the reactions are real. We're not acting here. We're not actors. We do that because it gives us a chance. A, that we're not having the same topic. B, we do it so that we can do some research and have an educated conversation about it. Um, So we may be tipping the hat a little bit, knowing that we're going to have that conversation about that, and that's okay because that's an important conversation that people need to have more of, especially with the case in the news today. Another one that I'll just throw out there with you, Jerry, that I think that I want to bring it up as a topic, and it's a big enough topic that we both should work on it at some point, is human trafficking. So um, I feel that that is something that we don't talk. It's swept under the rug a lot, and we need to definitely focus on that a little bit more. But we'll talk about that later.
I
We do
agree.
have two topics for today. Very small because we just wanted to get in here. We want to kind of introduce ourselves and what we're doing and how we're planning on doing it. We have two topics. Jerry, you can go first with your topic because you won the coin toss, the
Absolutely.
imaginary coin toss I just did.
There you go. Um, Actually, we planned on doing this last week, and due to technical difficulties, had to put it off for another week. So the thing that brought this to my attention and made me decide that I wanted to talk about political grandstanding, if you want to give it a name, was when I'd read in the news about Nancy Pelosi and her delegation of a few representatives that went to Ukraine and met with President Vladimir Zelensky. And this was, I believe, weekend before last. I'm not for sure exactly when it was, um, but it was sometime in that, close to that. And it immediately made me start thinking, why? Why did she feel it necessary to go and have her picture made? I felt sure that I knew the reason. Did a little research, and everything that I read everywhere was saying that, this was simply a photo op. This was no different than basically Donald Trump getting generals and I believe the attorney general to march across the street when they right after they had to clear Lafayette Square, as I recall, and did the photo op at the church where he held the Bible upside down to do his photo op. That's all it was. It's political grandstanding. I I am so tired of the political parties, and it is parties. It's not party. It's not Democrats. It's not Republicans. It's all of them that seem to be far more interested, as I mentioned earlier, in doing what they believe is necessary to hang on to the power that they have to stay in office instead of trying to fix the problems in the country. Guys, it is absolutely both parties, whether you want to look at Nancy Pelosi and some of the House Democrats that went over to Ukraine a little over a week ago. Her
You
reason that
also,
she gave at the time, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, Jill Biden also went just this last week to have
Yeah.
lunch in a war zone with the president of Ukraine's wife. Really? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to
Joe
throw
or
that out
Jill?
there. Jill Biden,
Yes,
the
yes,
first lady.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, when Pelosi went, she did say that she gave a reason for her going. She said, "Our delegation traveled to Kiev to send an unmistakable and resounding message to the entire world that America stands firmly with Ukraine." Has that not been stated previously on multiple occasions? Have we not given billions and billions of dollars? And I think rightfully so. I'm certainly glad that we are standing with Ukraine. I just don't understand why, whether it's Jill Biden or in the case with Pelosi, it just everything seemed to be geared toward a photo op, political grandstanding. Let's see how I can get my name in the paper. And again, guys, I'm not picking on one party. Whether it was Donald Trump going across to the church to hold up the Bible, which was upside down for his photo op. Um,
400 Republicans going to the southern border for the same thing. Ted Cruz, one of my
yep,
guys, as an
yep.
example, also. I mean,
Here's another
it,
example. Go ahead. I thought you're done. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, if any of the of any of the politicians that sort of, if you put air quotes around it, have an opportunity or a reason to go to the southern border, Ted Cruz would be one of them because he's a congressman from Texas, which is on the border, but he's not the only one. Just about every Republican in the party has been there at some point, standing on a wall, looking at some poor helpless folks trying to just make a better life for themselves, just to get a photo op in. But go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, another couple of examples, and one was right along with what you were talking about was Trump going back a little bit before most of the pictures that you're talking about. In 2016, Trump spent so much time trying to convince everyone in America that our problems, no matter what your problem is, that it's a result of illegal immigrants. Everyone remembers, I'm sure, when he was talking about Mexicans and he said, they're not sending us their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people, end quote. Um, Another example, this year, Joe Biden, during Earth Day remarks that he gave in Washington on April the 22nd, Biden said, and I quote, "We're going to start the process for every vehicle in the United States military. Every vehicle is going to be climate friendly. Every vehicle, I mean it. We're spending billions of dollars to do it." End quote. Are you flipping kidding me? He's saying that our tanks are going to be climate friendly? Our Humvees are going to be climate friendly? Are you kidding me? Our
Our
jet,
M1 Abrams, which can shoot a football off of another tank at 200 at like 100 miles at
yeah,
35 miles an hour. That's our
they're
biggest concern is the fact
climate
that
friendly. Yeah,
they're
obviously,
climate
these
friendly.
guys, whether it's Republicans going to the border trying to make an issue out of illegal immigration, or Joe Biden trying to tell us that we're going to make our tanks and Apache helicopters climate friendly, they're trying to appeal to our base interests. They're trying to figure out what the boogeyman is and come across to those people that are afraid of climate change, illegal immigrants, whatever it is. It's just political grandstanding. They're not doing anything, they're not accomplishing anything. All they're doing is political grandstanding. I'm tired of it. To me, it's very insulting. It they're basically saying that they think we're stupid enough to believe that they can make every tank, every helicopter climate friendly. There's think we're stupid enough to believe that they can and will fix the immigration problem and that will solve all of our problems. It's just political grandstanding, and I'm tired of it. So that's basically what I had to say. Don't think there's ever going to be a fix to that other than voting these people out. You and I have talked, Steve. We both believe that one of the best things that this country could do to fix our political problems would be term limits for Congress.
Term
Unfortunately,
limits,
Congress
term
themselves would
limits,
have to vote for
term
that,
limits.
and we can't see them doing that. But yes, I 100% agree. That would be the first and probably largest step in fixing so many of our problems. Think
I
I've
was thinking about that. There are several things that has to happen on a state level when you change the Constitution that do not derive from Congress initially. If we want to add a amendment to the Constitution, the states individually have to vote on that. I wonder if term limits wouldn't be one of those things. Why would you give the wolves the keys to the hen house, if you will? So I might have to do some research on that myself just to make sure. If anyone knows the answer to that, I'd be loving to hear it. Um,
very true.
you know,
Is that
uh,
in the Constitution
what?
that sets the limits for Congress? Probably is. I'm not for sure.
I'm sure it's in an amendment somewhere, buried somewhere, when somebody decided they wanted to stay longer than they should. Probably around the 1940s, around the FDR era, maybe.
Probably.
Just guessing. I have no idea. But you said um, one of the things when it comes to grandstanding, I was reading about the Pelosi thing. She said we wanted to go there to show a united front and deliver this $40 billion to the Ukrainians. Um, and that's all well and good. uh, but it, well, that's just all well and good. That's a different topic for a different day. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole
I
today.
know where you're started ahead with that. Yeah, that's going to devolve into a huge
you
thing
know
by
how my
itself.
mind thinks, Jerry. I was
Yep.
going, where's the money coming from?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes, you
Why do
are.
we got to pay interest on money we're giving away?
But that also applies to every dollar we're spending because, yeah, we don't have
Absolutely.
any of
Absolutely.
it. Very true.
Well, that's a great topic. And for once, there's not going to be neither of these topics today we picked. We have a give us a good opportunity to debate each other because we both agree with them. Political grandstanding to me just drives me insane. I hate it. People who think that, and a lot of it comes from the mentality I feel from people who the president is to the Congress to our state governors and state house people. They always try to govern and talk to us like we are all the lowest common denominator. And that drives me insane. To me, when you work toward the lowest common denominator, that's where you're setting your expectations. And I think that makes us worse as a country to do it that way. If you are talking to the top, the more educated, the more intelligent folk, and that's where you focus your message by not grandstanding. Hey, look, guys, we feel that we need to send this $40 billion. Okay, great, that's wonderful. Um, but why? And if the folks that it really makes me angry to be governed, taught, and education systems are that way as you get into the middle school ages and the high school ages, especially. They are taught to the lowest common denominator to get as many of those kids passed and onto the next grade as they possibly can. And the same thing applies in a stretched way. And I realize I'm stretching a bit, but when you politically grandstand, you are speaking, you're going to the lowest common denominator. Well, look, there was Nancy Pelosi. She really cares about them Ukrainian people. That's the message that the people on the bottom get and see, and that's why it's successful. That's why they're always going to do it because it may get them one additional vote or two additional votes. Um, Even though the people are on the other end of the spectrum are like, "Ugh, we got our head in our hands," and we're like, "Would you please stop with this?" And they do it because they get votes. And
Yep.
back to the term limit thing. If you had term limits and term limits were say six years for the Senate, or they have 6 year term, so we'll do that twice. They have 12 years. The first 6 years they're going to do what they do now. They're going to try to get reelected, but the second 6 years, when they have no shot of being reelected, that's when you would hope they would make the votes to make America better, and
That's
hopefully
when they would
not
try to
talk to
work on their legacy.
right, exactly. Instead of like our good buddy here, Mitch McConnell, who's been there 123 years and doesn't give a hot nothing about his legacy because he feel like he's got until he retires. It's crazy to me. So anyway, sorry about that. But uh, uh, so that was a good topic, Jerry, and even though we agree on it, it was very worth bringing up. It happens every day. Rob DeSantis down in Florida with the whole Disney thing is doing it right now.
Yep,
We
I agree.
talked about the Republicans on the southern border. We didn't talk about the Democrats on the southern border who were angry and yelling and screaming about these people in cages in these centers in Border Patrol headquarters. Well, guess what? Those same Democrats haven't said anything as Joe Biden's have made those cages bigger and stronger and hold more people. So they need to fix that whole system on the southern border, um, the whole way that to
They don't
make
want to
it
fix it.
more to what?
I really believe they do not care about fixing the problem. The problem would be way too easy to fix. That's not what they want to do. They should. I agree with you. I just don't think they have any intention of doing so.
Yeah, well, I agree that you are right on that. Oh my gosh, did I just say that out loud?
Yes, you did.
Jeez. I
Once
did not
again,
mean to say that out loud. Please, we're going to have to edit that out. I can't have on the air that I just said Jerry was right. That just goes against the whole my whole game here. Um, I'm editing that out, Jerry. Just so you know, no one else is going to know except whoever's on here today
Double
that I
infinity.
said that.
Double infinity shall be my witness.
Oh no, no, I don't think so. I think that that's going to be gone. um, but we do agree on that, and that's really really unfortunate that is the way it is because it just that leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes, it does. So, your topic. What is it you're going to be
Okay,
discussing with us
so
today?
yeah, my topic tonight is a little something totally different. We did one political thing tonight, and I thought that one of the things I saw an article and literally saw the article on the bottom, the very bottom of my scroll feed on Microsoft, uh, and I was like, why is this not being talked about? Why is this not being screamed to the heavens? And if you're wondering what that topic is, it's pretty simple. Um, the report says, and let me pull it up here just so that I have it. Um, and I can read it verbatim because it does it normally. I don't like to read straight from something, but this is a fact sheet from earthday.org. And I just want to stun you a little bit with some of the facts. Um, there are four. What we're going to talk about is the extinction and the rapid um, disappearance of honeybees and why that's important. Honeybees, by far, if you all didn't know, being here in Kentucky and there's a lot of farms and working out west where there's even more farms, honeybees by far are the best pollinators on earth. Without honeybees, we will all starve to death. I'll say that again because it's the facts. Without honeybees, we have no way to pollinate as effectively, and most people on earth will die of starvation. That sounds really scary, Steve. What's your facts? I'll tell you what the facts are. There's 20,000 bee species found around the world. 4,000 of them are in the United States alone. Folks, if you think that the rest of the world could feed themselves without the United States, you're wrong. We provide like an unbelievable amount of food to the rest of the world.
We're the largest
But
food exporter in the world. Not even close.
absolutely, from 2006 to 2015, approximately 25% fewer species were found worldwide. So 25% of 20,000 is what, 5,000 species disappeared? Under the best scenario, thousands of bee series have already become too rare to continue life. Ultimately, a decline in bee diversity is driven either by increase in rarity or irreversible extinction and will affect pollination of wild plants and crops and have broader ecological and economic consequences. There's many factors that they attributed to this. Habitat fragmentation, uh, a certain particular kind of pesticide colony collapse disorder, which is like a bee brain disorder, and climate change, be it man made or natural. Bees do, however, exist in all the climates in the world, which is good. Africa, they even live in the Arctic Circle. Wild bees in the U.S. live in many different places, including in the ground, in holes, and in trees. 75% of the world's crops, 70, I'll read that again, 75% of all the world's crops depend on bees as their primary pollinators. In North America alone, bees help with the production of at least 90 different crops. Um, and It says basically here, 1/3 of the world's entire food supply relies solely on bees, in one form or fashion or the other. The global crop production pollinated by bees is valued. Now, this was 5 years ago. The global crop production pollinated by bees is valued at $577 billion. 20 billion of that goes to the U.S. agriculture industry alone. In California, 80% of the almonds harvested, um, spread over 1.7 million acres, requires a staggering 1.6 million bee colonies to pollinate and produce the number of almonds to supply the world. That's 1.6 million colonies, not just the individual bees. That's how many for almost every acre it requires an entire colony of bees. Um, and the fact is that they are going away at an alarming rate. Since 1995, most bees have have since 1995, 40% of the global bee population has gone either extinct or is met and now on the endangered list. That's in less than 20 years. We lose 10,000 more species per year than at a normal rate. I guess because they're the way that they live and the way that they're colonized. If you lose the queen, you lose the colony. So it doesn't take much to reduce their numbers really, really quick. Um, and that's just one of the things that it just when I see that and I read it and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Why is that below what Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian wore to the Oscars? To me, that just I don't understand. I can't comprehend that. Again, I guess, and that's bad news. So it should be shouted to the trees. I think that that's something that we should, and we can do something about it. I mean, that's the scary part about bees. We have the ability in the United States to fix that. Can we control the rest of the world's populations? No, but we can certainly enact things and even without the help of government, we can have bee colonies in our own property.
Question for you, Steve.
Sure.
What are the primary reasons that bees are going extinct?
The primary reasons have uh, there's about six reasons that most people attribute to uh, the reasons. I can't speak. I apologize. Words are hard today. I worked hard today. So um, the six primary reasons for bees to be going extinct: pesticide use in America. That we're first world countries. We have pesticides that are affecting them.
Yep.
Um, Climate change, be it man-made or natural, is a huge thing. Um, Loss of habitat is another, and there's a few others that they don't understand. One of them is uh, here we go. Here's the article I was looking for. I apologize for the delay there. Okay, so modern farming methods are actually part of that, to
Yep.
blame for part of that. The reason is bees require different types of or pollen. They don't go around pollinating just because they want to help people out. They pollinate because they need to go back to their hives. They need to make honey for their young, and that's part of their life cycle. But when
Yep.
we spend in the Midwest, when we have hundreds and hundreds of acres that are all corn, well, corn alone will not make honey, so they have to leave that area to go find different crops to make their honey. Not only that, there's residue on top of those crops that can affect the production of honey and bees and pollination. There are some new diseases and parasites. One of them is called the Varroa destructor. Sounds like a Decepticon on the Transformers. um, but basically, they weaken our bees, weaken our colonies, and one of those is that it loses the worker bees will leave the hive to go find pollen, and they forget how to get back to the hive, and they die, but in the
Isn't cell
droves.
phones related to that?
Yes, I was getting ready to say
Electromagnetic.
that. Um,
Yes.
um, Wi-Fi consists of electromagnetic radiation.
Yep.
Bees use magnetic bars in their bodies um,
That's a compass.
to find, kind of like like bats use echolocation. It's how they find home, and when they go into areas of high Wi-Fi concentrations, they get very confused very easily because their bodies tell them to do something that it ain't supposed to do. Climate change, of course, is a big one. Uh, for here in America, they have new predators that they never had before, especially in the upper Midwest or Northwest and California. The newly arrived Asian murder hornets are a serious threat. And you still have coming up from the south and an ever expanding. It's basically every year they take another. I'm pretty sure I read every year they go another 15 miles north. You don't hear about it as much anymore, but Africanized bee colonies are taking over the South, all the way up from Mexico through California. Some have actually reached Western Kentucky at this point. So um, that's a new thing that's threatening them. So there's a lot of things, and of those things, there are things that we can control that we can help the bee population so that we don't starve to death. Starving to death seems like a bad way to go for me.
No, I agree. But to play devil's advocate, think about a couple of the things that we said are some of the biggest causes uh, for the decline in bee population. And when you begin to look at pesticides and cell phone usage, uh, yeah, I don't know how willing we're going to be to give up our pesticides. I don't know how willing we're going to be to give up our um, cell phone usage. So that could be part of the reason with it not hitting the news more. Although I absolutely, totally agree with you when this huge a portion of the food for the entire world is dependent upon it, whether it's an easy conversation or an extremely tough conversation, it's one that needs to be had.
Well, you said pesticides. Um, One of the things that we've been great at, especially in this country, is adapting and changing our pesticides to better our wildlife population. You know, 20, 30 years ago, DDT was a huge pesticide, but it was decimating our bald eagle and what are they? What are they? Those are raptors, right? Eagles.
Not for sure.
They are a very specific kind of bird, but it was decimating their genus of bird. Um, and we got rid of it. We said, okay, that's really hurting our wildlife. Let's switch, and we switched to different pesticides. We made the pesticide companies take a hard look at what they were doing to the wildlife. Yeah, it was killing the bugs, but it was also destroying the creeks. We've stopped that. Um, so I think that that's something that it would take a couple of hard years, but we could make that work. Um, you know, if in between rows, when I lived out west, you would just drive through Iowa, through Nebraska, Kansas. Kansas has it figured out. Every other field in Kansas, for the most part, as part of their crop rotation, is now sunflowers. They've developed that because they can sell sunflower seeds, sunflower oil, and harvest it. but it also increases the yield of their other crops because of the pollination of the bees. So those are a couple things. Are we going to get rid of Wi-Fi? No. uh, we're not ever going to get rid of Wi-Fi. That's dumb. But of the things we can control, we should control. That's just the way I see that.
No, I agree. Whether it's easy or not, these are decisions we're going to have to start making. We can't give up,
Well,
that portion of the world's food.
just to put a wrap on it, Jerry, it's like so many other things that we talk about. Ultimately, at our age, we've gone a long time in our lives taking, and now we have to realistically, as adults, look at, okay, we've done all this. Now, what are we going to do to leave our children a better place? What sacrifices are we going to make to the kids and the grandkids and the generations that are coming to a better place? But that's just kind of how that is. I feel like this has been a good episode today. We got on
I agree.
practically on time. We got two topics in. We had an interview session. The only thing we didn't do was a bad dad joke.
I'm sure we can easily overcome that problem.
I'm sure we could, but I'm not. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm
We'll
not going to
save
have a
that
bad
for
dad joke.
we'll save that for the next episode.
Awesome. It sounds great. I appreciate you, and we'll get this edited and we'll post it, and then we'll
Very soon.
prepare for next week's episode. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I appreciate it so much. I'll talk to you
Absolutely.
soon.
Thanks. See you next time.
Bye.